have to use specific colours. The senior students were absolutely fascinated by the freedom of my sketches, and I went on to give them a demonstration. So we visited the local market to stock up on supplies. Markets anywhere in the world are fascinating, and Bhutan is no exception. Many familiar fruits and vegetables, many less familiar. This is the only cheese available in Bhutan. This is yak's cheese. In its raw state, it's as hard as granite. It can only be eaten cooked. And Bhutan is a landlocked country. They don't fish the rivers, so if you fancy a fish and chip supper, this is your only option. Dried fish from India. And of course, it's also a Buddhist country. There are no butchers in Bhutan. A few people do eat meat, and that again is imported from India. We saw a batch arriving at market, strapped. Sorry, I've lost a slide.
Go back.
Go back one.
Let's try.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Let's try go forward one more. Just like this.
Oh, there we are. A batch of meat arriving at market strapped to the roof rack of a taxi. Now bear in mind that the closest border to India was about 150 miles away, and just think how many flies hit your windscreen when you're driving in hot weather. You know, we were pretty glad, Annalise and I, that we're both vegetarian. And then there are the chilies, millions and millions of chilies. Chilies are the national dish. They start eating them at breakfast. They eat them cooked alone as a vegetable. They eat them raw, dipped in salt, and they even grind them up and put them in the baby milk. One of the questions, in fact the most common question we're asked after I give talks is, were you not ill? Well, the next page of my journal will answer, it will not answer that one. That's me trying a chili, hopefully, never mind. Okay, we were. So our final official meeting was with the departments for farming, and we wanted to hear about farming practices in Bhutan and any conflict with the wildlife there. And close by was this small monastery we just wandered through. We were immediately surrounded by these young novice monks who were very excited to see visitors there, crowded round to have their photographs taken. So here they are, posing with the flag. And just behind them, you can see their flags, their prayer flags, which are all over Bhutan. Every different colour of prayer flag has a different meaning. They hang them, the yellow one is for prosperity. They hang them high on the mountain sides and anywhere that the wind can catch them to carry the blessings over the country. So we bought our own prayer flags. We hung them high on a mountain side. Prayer flags are never taken down. They're just left to disintegrate in the sun and wind. So our prayer flags will always remain in Bhutan. We paid a visit to the black-necked crane centre. Black-necked cranes are very rare. They overwinter in Bhutan, the Potjika Valley. Sadly, the cranes had left the week before we arrived, and they all go together. But I was fortunate enough to be able to see one of the black-necked cranes. A local farmer had rescued an injured one. This is an official photograph of the valley with the cranes in. This one was injured, a local farmer was caring for it, so I did have the opportunity to sketch the crane. Usually when I'm sketching, when I'm on a working trip, I take a hardback folder full of loose sheets of handmade papers, lots of different colours and different styles. This is on a sheet of paper from my own folder. Bhutan is famous for its handmade papers. The paper factories are very primitive. Somehow in these conditions they produce wonderful paper. I ordered a batch to be sent back to my studio to work on. So we loaded up our vehicle again to continue, to start off on the long drive over to the east of Bhutan. There is only one road connecting the west of Bhutan to the east, the National Highway. It's a single-track road with two-way traffic. It's an absolute roller coaster ride, hair-raising. through the mountains. Just imagine meeting a truck coming in the other direction. Well, fortunately, most of the traffic we met on the national highway was herds of cows. Not too bad. But wherever you're driving in the east of Bhutan, you always seem to be going uphill. And there are only 3 road signs in Bhutan. Steep uphill, steep downhill, and hairpin bend. It isn't always possible to travel from the west to the east of Bhutan. Over the winter months, the national highway is blocked by the snows, and in the monsoon season, sections of this road get washed down the mountainside. So it's a pretty tricky road to drive. It takes 4 or 5 days to drive from the west to the east, so of course we had to find accommodation en route. Many of them offered fooding and lodging. Bhutan is actually a very wet country, and up to this point we'd been very fortunate with the weather. But now black clouds rolled across the sun and the heavens opened. Tent manufacturers would have you believe that canvas has waterproof properties. That's our dining tent. We were also, this heavy rainstorm also brought out crowds of leeches, blood-sucking leeches. That is our little, how do you call it here, restroom? Okay, at least it afforded us some privacy, but just imagine trying to balance over a very large hole in a very small tent, clutching 2 soggy tent flaps together because the zip didn't work, and trying to avoid all the leeches crawling up the walls. Not a happy moment. So we were now in prime red panda habitat. That was one of our 4 target species. We were now surrounded by forests of bamboo, and we noticed that many of the stems had been stripped of leaves. And on one early morning trek, we were fortunate enough to see one of the red pandas. They are mainly nocturnal, but it was very early in the morning and he was searching for somewhere to settle to sleep away the night. So again, I made many pages of sketches in the journal. And these sketches I used to do the painting, which is actually here on exhibition at the moment. Another very rare cat that lives in Bhutan is the clouded leopard. This photograph was taken in captivity. Clouded leopards are very nocturnal and very rare. But one night as I was making my way from the dining tent towards our little sleeping tent, a shadow crossed the track in front of us, the unmistakable shape of a clouded leopard. It was carrying something in its mouth, possibly a pheasant, maybe a hen from a nearby farm. This was just my impression of the leopard crossing the path. And a painting. I was very influenced by the gilded work in the temples of Bhutan and the beautiful graphic symbols, the writing, so I incorporated that into many of my paintings of this exhibition. The southern parts of Bhutan are much more fertile. That's where all the farming is carried out, and the main crop, of course, is rice. 2 rosy-cheeked children peering out at us from one of the farms there. All the farming is still done by hand, and most of the ploughing, I've lost it again, sorry. Go again? Most of the ploughing, well, the ploughing is still done by hand. They use oxen or yaks. And this bush on legs is actually a farmer carrying home fodder to feed his cows. And all the milking is still completely done by hand. We now started to see troops of Assamese macaque monkeys and also the cat langur with a silver grey coat. But the reason we'd come into the south of Bhutan was in search of the rarest langur, the golden langur. They only live in a very small part in the region in the south of Bhutan, and they are truly golden blonde monkeys. And of course we'd gone out in the springtime. We were lucky enough to be there when many of them have tiny little golden babies. They were very protective, but occasionally we were able to get close enough for me to make some sketches. And the golden langurs are very popular with the people of Bhutan. They don't raid crops, and they're also considered to be a lucky symbol if they're seen well.